minute. I know a lot of you, or a couple of you anyway, were diligently following along to the outer planets and their cycles. I was reading it to you guys and kind of doing like a book study. And it's been about 6 or 7 months now since I've been on. For those of you who are following along, I went back to school. You know, I got straight A's and now it's summertime, but it's still taken me a month to kind of sort of get life back together. So, you know, it is Mercury retrograde. I'm just going to talk for a minute to give you guys a minute to get in here. I know there was some true crime stuff going on this week. A lot of it's not too far from me, what happened. So, um, I've been hearing my hometown mentioned quite a bit in all of it. It's not like with the Lori Vallow and the Brian Koberger stuff. It's not where I'm from, but it's close. Um, so I know that was going on today. So I figured I'd get on afterwards so that I don't steal, you know, or well, not steal the spotlight. Probably you guys wouldn't be available because you'd be busy watching that if you are. Anyways, Mercury is retrograde right now, and so I almost wanted to do a little video on that. If you've been following the channel for any amount of time, you know that I've done a couple Mercury retrograde videos, and I'm going to say most of it here, but if I decide, I might just kind of pop on and do a live about that too. I was trying to decide, should I do a Mercury retrograde live and then a book study live, but I don't want to break it up because I might lose some of you guys, you know, if you're in here. So with that being said, Mercury is retrograde, and the other day, a friend of mine goes, and I was doing readings, not even realizing it, because I had looked about a month back because it had felt like Mercury retrograde. And I think it's another planet that was doing it. And I thought it had said the end of July, like in the 20s, and it was July 18th it started. So I was a couple days behind with clients on it, but when I looked it up, let's see here. It's been a while since I've been on, so I kind of got to recompose myself. But I saw it was July 18th, and so yesterday I was talking to a friend who was flying around the world and or not around the country for work, and they're like, "Oh, my flight's delayed," and I'm like, "Oh, I was supposed to have company over earlier, and it got delayed, and I don't know what time they're coming now." And he goes, "Oh, delays," and I'm like, "Oh, Mercury's retrograde." I go, "That happened to me once when I was flying from the Southwest US up to the Northwest. No, I was flying back down. I was like, it was Mercury retrograde, and all my flights were delayed. I got stuck in Seattle for overnight because of the like this Naval Blue Angels show. I think it was in like 2018 or 2019. Um, yeah. So, anyways, I could go into a lot more details about it, but hi, I see you're all like joining me now. Hey, Death Drone. Hey, Callan Stone. So Mercury retrograde, right? I go, I had friends coming over, but they were delayed. And he goes, "Oh, isn't that funny? My flights are delayed." So I was like, that happened to me once when I was flying back down south. All my flights were delayed, and it was Mercury retrograde. He's learning. He's like, "Oh, this happens 3 times a year." So that's crazy that would happen. That he was like, Mercury was retrograde then too. Like, I'm just teaching him about it. He's never heard of it before. But he always tells me, I was just telling a girl the other day that I know a girl who knows all about astrology, or that I use, and like 2 years ago, he told me the same thing. I was just telling a girl that I knew a girl that knew all about astrology. So I'm like, well, I'm a lot better at it now. I didn't know what Mercury retrograde was back when I knew him before, and we don't really keep in touch much. So it's just ironic that, every time I talk to him, he's like, "I was just talking about you and telling someone that I know someone who knows a lot about astrology." Hi, Kellen. I don't know if you heard me. I said hey to you. Hey, Jalen. Oh, the roof. I don't know what that means. There's like a number one crown thing next to your names, Callan and Jay. So I don't know if that's like a number one subscriber, or I have to figure out what that symbol is. I've never seen it before. But it's next to Callan and Jalen. So we're gonna pick up where we left off. So to bring the whole Mercury retrograde tangent full circle, Mercury retrograde, everyone's so afraid of it because your flights get delayed. And I told him it's really an adventure. It's like, yeah, you're not getting there directly like you wanted to, but you can kind of enjoy it. You hear him joking around with people on the plane about how they got to go around Denver, but they can't go through Denver. And so if you just kick back and relax with the delays, you might meet new people or learn something or get some kind of closure that you maybe didn't even know you were looking for. And so that's why I'm saying in tangent, we're finally getting back to this book study during Mercury retrograde, because the Mercury retrograde is a great time to finish things. So I'll have clients come to me like, I don't know if I should finalize my divorce during Mercury retrograde, and I'm like, no, you don't want to get married during Mercury retrograde. You can, it's a good time to, look over things and close them out. A lot of times Mercury retrograde will bring you back to something that, for me, often, like especially with like more technical stuff or like writing, it'll bring me back to something that I was working on 5 Mercury retrogrades ago that I put a really hard 3 weeks into and didn't touch for 4 years, or 3 years, and all of a sudden I'm finishing it during a Mercury retrograde. I found that pattern too. So that kind of goes to the book study. Like I didn't get to it, the last Mercury retrograde. I was working on my own life stuff, I guess, but this Mercury retrograde, it's time to finish this book. So we're on lecture 4. It's 7 lectures. It was by Liz Green, famous astrologist. She's still alive. She's created a lot of like I think it's astrodentist.com, which is like a really cool. She made like an automated horoscope. All right, Anna, thank you for the love. Everything's a spectrum, so if you hate me, you must love me as well, because the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So you wouldn't be here if you didn't care about me at all. But I need moderators before I, provoke any vitriol. Hi, Mr. Guadanaros. Hi, Guavo. Um, Guavo, as long as it's appropriate, go ahead. Cool Dog the Man, what's up? All right, cool. I'm seeing like a lot of new faces in here today, so that's cool. So just to let you know, we're finishing up this book, and I'm just gonna kind of, I was looking over where we left off. I have a bookmark, but it has a lot to do. We're looking at the birth charts of the nations. So I know when I left off on sort of a Libra tangent in the last one, and she's talking about sort of an older transit that happened, because this book was published in, I know when we were reading it before, I was spitting it out all the time, but it was published in 1983, and it's from lectures that she did, I believe, around like 1980 or 81. So the transits she's talking about are a bit outdated, but we're sort of talking about the archetypes of the outer planets. And some of these transits, if you go back and watch this series, because we've done all the way through lecture 4 now, and again, there's 4 out of 7. She there are some conjunctions that we just had, like in 2020 there was a huge one. I believe it was Saturn and Pluto. It was either a conjunction or square, and so we've talked in depth about that. If you're just joining in now, you can go back and look at that. Oh, thank you, Gavo, for the subscribing. Strategy about track, like, are you talking about running track? Hi, Victor. Victor Flores. What's up? Okay, so I'm just going to kind of read, and then I'll pause and I'll make comments, and I'll read your guys' comments if you have questions. If you love astrology, you might get absorbed into it. And if you don't, then oh well, you can just hang out. And okay, so, oh, I don't think so as we left off talking about the conjunction continues through January. This was a in Libra thing. So, okay, this looks interesting. So I'm going to pick up right here. She's talking about Jupiter and how it's not an outer planet, which I consider an outer planet. I guess it's more of a mid planet. I kind of either go interpersonal, which is Mars, Mercury, Venus, or outer, which is, to me, I guess would start sort of with Jupiter, and then Neptune, and then Saturn and Pluto. But a lot of people read Jupiter and even Neptune as sort of mids, even though Neptune's closer to Pluto, I believe. All right. Anyways, I'm not good at geography. So, yeah. Oh, and by the way, definitely stay tuned, because I'm doing the Big 144 series where I cover all the sun, moon, and rising signs. So I have had the Sagittarius, Sun, Aries, Moon video bouncing around in my head for quite some time now. I've kind of been scripting it in my mind, so I will be getting on that this summer. And the other, man, then I just lost the thought of the other thing I'm going to be making a video about, people will come to me and they'll be like, what about the 13th planet? And what about all the signs are one off now? And I was always like, yeah, whatever, da, da, da. And then we were using the app, and I was telling you guys, like, be careful of apps and things, because they don't always have the accurate details. So we're using the app to map the astronomy in the sky. Like, we could see Venus out there one night. This was a few months ago. And I realized, I see what I see now, because I'm a very tactile learner. Like, you have to show me and like show me one time how to do it. So if you're just like, hey, do this, I'm like, how do I do it? Or if I'm not audio, and I wouldn't even say visual. It's like, because even if I see a video on it, I won't necessarily know. It's like if somebody does it for me once, then I'll always remember. Um, so I'm looking at the sky with the app, and it's, all the signs are one off. I'm like, wait, no, Mars isn't in Gemini right now, it's in Taurus or something, and vice versa. This was a few months ago. So I'm getting frustrated. And so then I'm like, oh, I get what you guys are talking about. So the astrology doesn't align with the current astronomy. So I'm definitely going to be doing a video. I don't know if I'll do it live or not. I would like the feedback with you guys, but it might be kind of hard for me to stay on topic because I get distracted a little easily, especially if I'm really passionate about something. So I may sort of outline it, but that kind of put me in a hole too for a little while about hopping on here because I was going, wait a minute, okay, my whole thing has been astrology is real because it matches the stars in the sky. And then I'm like, oh, actually, no, it doesn't. But we're going to go over that front, backwards, forward, sideways, up and down, from both sides. Like, is the astronomy correct? Is the astrology correct? Do they really match? Do they really not match? Maybe sort of like, I like to watch true crime, like Nora Jasmine, like we're gonna put our tinfoil hats on and go over that. So anyways, all right, I'm just gonna kind of start reading monotonously because I see you guys popping in and out. So hopefully we'll get something out of this. I'm be on for about an hour. All right, and let me know, you guys, if the audio and the connection is good because I just got a new office, and so this is the first live that I've done. I should probably at home in my basement office. The cell service is garbage, but I have like really good Wi-Fi there now. So here I have like weaker Wi-Fi, but the self service is better. So I'm kind of testing that out as well. So let me know if I'm like cutting in and out or anything, or if the audio is going out. All right. I might have to get a little bit stronger service here. So these are, of course, not okay. This is where we left off. So if you want to pick up where we left off, it's the outer planets and their cycles. Lecture 4 part 4 is where we left off, so this is lecture 4 part 5. Also, if you are single and looking for a mate, do be sure to check out moonmatch.love. Now you can subscribe for free and enter your details into the database. It's for the summer. You can enter for free like the silver package, and it's pretty easy now. Like, they're trying to make it more and more user friendly. So you just subscribe to the silver package, and then you will go to the matchmaker and you'll add your birth details, and you can see right away if you have any matches. And if you do, you can chat with them. So it's pretty cool. You should definitely check it out. Moonmatch.love if you're single and you believe in astrology and you're looking for a partner in life that you have good compatibility with. The concept was, I get tired of helping clients who found a bad astrology partner. So I'm like trying to help you guys get in there ahead of time. So you don't have to come to me in 4 years after a miserable relationship, and you can meet someone you're compatible with now. So do check out moonmatch.love. It is free to subscribe and enter the matchmaker, at least for now, if you do the silver package. All right. With that being said, let's get back into this. One of the things which other astrologers have noted about Jupiter-Saturn cycles is that they coincide with important economic fluctuations. My teeth got a little messed up, but I was like, I'm getting them fixed, but I'm like, if I have a speech impediment, that's why. Well, anyways. Fluctuations such as sudden rises and depressions in the stock market. There's also the curious phenomenon of American presidents dying in office who have been elected under Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions, since they have occurred in Earth signs. I think in many ways it might be more relevant and interesting in the context of this workshop to talk about the conjunction in relation to the charts of particular countries. Talking about the meaning of the conjunction would be fascinating, but its effect on specific trouble spots is even more fascinating. Usually, if a country's chart is affected by Jupiter-Saturn, it will be through the economy, or the rulership changes, which is the old meaning of Jupiter-Saturn. Now, she does like this dash thing in the book, so I don't, like, for some of it, it seems like she means Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, but it could also mean like a square or an opposition as well, I believe, unless she clarifies otherwise. As it was interpreted in the Middle Ages. Something old and outworn is dethroned, and there's a burst of new energy and some chaos before a new, younger thing emerges. The three charts which I think might be worth looking at are those of America, Iran, and Israel. So it's interesting too because this was written in the early 80s, but these countries are still very relevant to current day politics, right? Well, yeah, like everything going on in the Middle East. So it is interesting to sort of overlap it. I think we did the math in this was 1983 and we were reading it and we started this in 2024. So it's exactly 40 years, right? It was exactly 40 years to the day, something that we had looked at. Anyways, I was also going to talk about Russia's horoscope, which I will do shortly. I am not an expert in mundane astrology, and my tendency is to look at a country's chart psychologically, in the same way that I will look at an individual's. So I cannot make concrete predictions that will help anybody invest money at the right time. I think there are other astrologers who have made more of a specialty of this field, which is certainly a worthwhile one to examine. And if you guys go to astrowin.org, there's the winning times thing, which is really cool, and it will tell you when's the best time to gamble. I've worked a little bit with him. He's an astrologist and a computer programmer, and he actually helped make the matchmaker. Um, so check it out, moonmatch.love, if you want to enter the matchmaker. But he has on astrowin.org, Alan has a really cool thing called winning times if you are interested in trying to win money through astrology. I always put that out there. I get no kickbacks for that. I really like to use it, but I always like look it up. I'm like, okay, I got to get to the corner store to buy a scratch ticket before 9 a.m. tomorrow. And then, like, of course I sleep until 10 a.m. So no wonder I never win at the lotto because I barely ever play it. I always say you can't win the lotto if you don't buy a ticket. I barely ever play it unless I just randomly think of it and it catches my attention. I feel like if you're meant to win, you're gonna win. So I always only buy one ticket per whatever game. Um, but yeah, so if you guys do check out the winning times thing on astrowin.org, and it's like Astro Win, like winning, um, and you win anything, let me know. Anyways, because I have yet to actually execute a time frame, but it's pretty cool. Anyways, let's see. I think there are other astrologers who have made more of a specialty in this field, which is certainly a worthwhile one to examine. There's also the problem. Oh, and he actually based the winning times off of another astrologist who figured out in her own birth chart. 'Cause she has like some really lucky, like I think it was Jupiter and the moon with Leo, like going on something with fire and Leo, which it's Leo season now. So happy birthday to all my Leos. But she figured out like when the moon is conjunct her Jupiter, which is like when the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the song. But anyways, she figured out, and so was actually an astrologist that's good at winning money at astrology with her astrology that inspired him to make that computer program, which is kind of cool. Anyways, um, there is also the problem of the accuracy of these national horoscopes. Israel, for example, is given two quite different charts according to two source books I have looked at. The one which has 10 degrees of Libra rising, which I will be using, is based on the data given in the Times when the state was proclaimed in 1948. This chart appears in Charles Carter's book on political astrology. There's another chart which gives a 1 degree Scorpio ascendant, which has been calculated by the American Federation of Astrologers. And it's interesting. I think I was kind of going on a Libra Scorpio tangent, and I had actually thought to say the other day, I was watching a random Virgo moon video because all of a sudden all of them popped up in Virgo moon, right? And I hadn't seen any of them, which is weird. I felt like I had gone through all of them. And he didn't really talk about a Virgo moon as much as he talked about just the archetype of Virgo. But he did say, that each mutable sign, because he said a lot about that. I can't remember who I was watching, but he said, each mutable sign is at the end of a season. So it's a culmination of the two. It's learned the lessons of the two signs before it. And at the end of the last video we did, which was, lecture 4, part 4 for the outer planets. Hi, Tia. Welcome. I was saying how I've heard before that Sagittarius is a culmination of Libra and Scorpio. Well, Sagittarius is the mutable sign after them. So kind of going back, I had wanted to tell you guys that because I haven't been on in a while. So it's just things bouncing around in my brain that I want to say to you. But another thing too is daylight savings time, like the year I was born, in April, right? 411, it changes, like it changed. So if I'd been born the year before, it would have, it would have been an hour difference, whatever. I would have been a Scorpio rising. So, you know, I actually accidentally once ran my chart, and I think it made me a Scorpio rising, and I got all confused, but it actually kind of made sense too, you know. And that's when people go, well, you know, isn't it just like you could apply it to anything type thing? And that's sort of when we go into our video about the astronomy versus the astrology right now in the sky, what we're going to go over a lot, you know. Could you just apply anything to anything? Well, I mean, I guess if you're like a true intuitive, then you can read tea leaves or anything. But I'm intuitive and I can't just read anything, so I don't know. But we'll definitely go over it in that video, which is coming out soon. So if you want to see about, you know, why aren't the stars in the sky aligning with the current astrology, definitely subscribe because that will be coming out soon. And if you go to divinetimingdatabase.com, divinetimingdatabase.org is the dating matchmaker site. You can get there by going to moonmatch.love as well. But divinetimingdatabase.com, you can make your own free private database. But up in the menu, it says the sky right now. So you can see where the planets are in astrology right now, but that's not where they are in the sky. And I've been saying the wrong thing for about a year now. So, you know, we're going to make a video really going over that. So if you watch one of my previous videos over like the last year or so, you know, I've had this channel for about 5 or 6 years now, but it was over the last year or two that I started saying, oh, astrology is real because it matches the stars in the sky. No, we're going to go over that thoroughly, probably within the next month, if not within a week or so. Just depends how my calendar looks. But anyways, okay, another chart for Israel gives a 1-degree ascendant, which has been calculated by the American Federation of Astrologers. I don't know which is accurate. The same problem occurs with America's chart. Because of the uncertainty of the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, I have used the chart Dane Rudder gives in his book on America's astrology. Iran's chart is a dog's breakfast, because when a country changes from form as drastically as Iran has, then it's in a sense born anew. So she's saying because Iran kind of changes leadership and structure more frequently than like America, that it's kind of hard to tell exactly when its birth chart would be, right? It's sort of like it dies and it's reborn, and it dies and it's reborn. So which rebirth are we going to use, you know? Maybe this is, of course, the early 80s, but if we were looking at it today, we would probably want to use Iran's most previous establishment. I mean, maybe look at it versus other very significant, you know, leadership time frames. All right. But from what moment should one date the birth of Khomeini's Iran? From the moment his foot was placed on Iranian soil, or the moment, I hope I said his name right, Khomeini. I believe he was a leader of Iran. It's Khomeini. I always hate when I mispronounce names because I hate when people mispronounce mine. But anyways, from the moment his foot was placed on Iranian soil, or the moment of the collapse of the Shah's government, who can see the problems with national charts? Or you can see the problem with national charts. Nevertheless, it's worth commenting on, if for no other reason than to open up speculation and illustrate the way in which a nation is a collective entity with its own psyche. A nation is born at a particular moment, although it might be a little difficult to get the information, and it embodies a particular pattern of development in the same way that an individual does. It has a fate and a bias of temperament, and conflicts and insecurities, and gifts and potentials. And the psychic mechanisms such as compensation that are at work in individuals are also at work in nations. Nations also project parts of their charts just as people do, and elect another nation to become the carrier of one end of a natal square. So she's saying, you know, they choose their enemies, basically, I think is what she's saying, by electing another nation to become the carrier of their natal square. It's like they, you know, if a nation or an individual has a square in their chart, then, you know, they're going to choose their enemies, is kind of what she's saying, I believe. That's how I interpret it. All right, so I'll begin with America, because even with the problem over the time of birth, at least there's agreement about the day, and therefore we can see what the Jupiter Saturn transit in Libra will do to the natal planets. I'm personally convinced by Rudder's chart because it seems to me to describe what I see very accurately. Saturn is in the 10th house in Libra. This is, she's talking about America's birth chart, and the midheaven is around 2 degrees of Libra. Saturn falls in square to the natal Jupiter-Sun conjunction in Cancer, in the 7th house, which deals with the other, whether it's another person or another country. That's interesting. So according to her, America's birth chart has a Sun Jupiter conjunction in the 7th house. I have that as well in my 7th house. It's good for one-on-one relationships. So, that could be why America has a lot of allies. But it is squaring Saturn. And I believe my son's trining Saturn. But anyways, all right. The 10th house in mundane charts always refers to the style of government. The leader, just as in an individual chart, is the person's image or persona in the eyes of the world, their reputation, right? The thing which rules him in terms of external standards of behavior. So America's midheaven, its rulers would be personified by the sign of Libra, according to this birth chart. And our current president is a Gemini, and I was telling you guys, like, he was up against Kamala, and she was a Libra, actually. So anyways, a lot of air in our leadership here. A lot of hot air in our leadership here in America. All right. Now the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction lands on the midheaven, Saturn midpoint, and hovers around Saturn for quite some time. That suggests some turmoil. So this was back in the early 80s, but there was a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction hanging out with the natal Saturn on the midheaven of America's birth chart. That suggests some turmoil in terms not only of the present government, which would be very unlikely to survive another term in office after a transit like this, but it also suggests to me that America's image of authority and rule in the world might take a bit of buffeting. So I think in the early 80s, because I was going to look at this, I think Reagan was president, right? He did like two, I think he was the only one to do 3 terms. But wasn't Reagan also like shot and survived? And that's what I got a little confused about. Politics isn't my specialty, but this particular part of the book is about politics, because the outer planets really do have a lot to do with politics, Saturn and Jupiter and such. So, so anyways, America's image of authority and rule in the world might take a bit of buffeting. Saturn in Libra tends to set itself up as the arbiter of rights, the fair judge and leader and guide. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick flash here of the birth charts of Iran in the U.S. So here's the birth chart of Iran under Khomeini. And again, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. It's Khomeini. He was a leader of Iran, I believe. And it's saying it was February 11th, 1979, 2 p.m., Tehran, Iran. From the source is more the Book of World Horoscopes. So I'll just flash this. So if you guys are on your phones or something, you want to screenshot it, you can follow along. And then I will show you the birth chart of the USA, which is dated July 4th, 1776, 5 p.m., Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The source is Radar, the Astrology of America's Destiny. And I'll give you that if you want to take a screenshot of America's birth chart there or anything like that. I know for like me, this is kind of just like, okay, this stuff will probably click later. I'm just reading through it with you guys. But for some of you, you might actually know politics and geography really well, and I don't want to, I don't want to insult that. So I'll try not to break it up too much here, but at least you have sort of the visual reference if you want it. And again, this book on Amazon is like $200 last time I checked. So, it might be worthwhile to just go through it with me unless you really, really want it. The fact that the transit stirs up the natal squares suggests to me that okay, hold up. Okay, we were talking about Saturn in Libra, right? It sees itself as the fair judge and the leader and guide. So and Libra is like a very diplomatic sign. So, if America's midheaven's in Libra, that could be why we sort of pride ourselves on, and the rest of the world might not agree. So I know you guys are watching from all over the world, but we sort of pride ourselves on being, diplomats. Like that's what our ideal is. I'm not saying America always does everything right by any means, and I'm not really trying to get in the nitty gritty of politics, but at least in our own minds, our ideal is that we are, diplomatic, right? Okay, that's our Libra midheaven. That's our what we're trying to hold ourselves to, is what it's saying here. The fair judge, right? Like America, it decides, right? Now, whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. But that's what America is trying to live up to. And some people might say, yes, they are diplomatic, and they do all these good things in the world. And some people might say, yeah, they don't do a great job at that. Probably depends on the transits. Anyways, that is, of course, the role America has played for a long time in terms of presenting itself this way to other nations. This transit is of course a Saturn return as well as a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. So there would be a maturing process at work. Now, a Saturn return happens every 27 years. So this is the early 80s, 1980s. So this happened again around 2007. So sort of like the start of the Obama era. And I believe, is Obama a Leo? I think he has like a I know he has something really significant in Leo, and it is Leo season. It might be, I think he has like his sun in the seventh house too, or Jupiter in the seventh house, like America and I do. But I thought he had some prominent air. That was my point. If the Saturn return was happening, sort of as the Bush administration was going out and the Obama era was coming in, that's a very, like it says, like she's saying here in the early 1980s, that Saturn Jupiter conjunction with the Saturn return on the midheaven of America's chart could sort of push out old leadership. That's sort of Saturn, right? Pushing that out, because Saturn return now rewards you for your hard work all those years, and it brings in new leadership. That's Jupiter, sort of that fresh, rewarding energy. So that definitely could have been happening, and I could verify, but it would make sense to me that that was happening sort of at the turn of, going from a very conservative leadership to a very liberal one, um, sort of doing the hard work, and then or the authoritarian, and then going into sort of this idealistic progressive phase, right? And I'm like I said, I'm trying to stay apolitical here, so you know I'm not leaning either way. So I'm trying to be diplomatic with my Libra rising about what I'm saying about each side. All right. The fact that the transit stirs up the natal square suggests to me that the conflict might erupt through a collision with another country. Now, we were at war, like in the early 2000s when we were having this again, because she's talking about the early 1980s here. But, we've had the cool thing about reading back over this book, and I hate to be redundant, but I see you guys popping in and out, is that we have had enough time to compare. These transits have occurred again, at least once since this book was written, and she's talking about it in the early 80s. Even I am not a big historian, besides maybe like Greek mythology and stuff, which I don't know if that's true history. So I get it's kind of boring, you guys. But for some of you, like I said, I don't want to insult you if you really enjoy politics and history and stuff. So let's get on with it. To me, that conflict might erupt through a collision with another country. Although this does not have to mean a war, it's certainly a confrontation. Saturn and square to the sun in a person's chart suggests a deep sense of inadequacy and insecurity, and a need to prove oneself over and over again to others. This is Saturn in a square to the sun. So if you have Sun square Saturn in your chart, or you see that anywhere, according to Liz Green, this is a deep sense of inadequacy and insecurity, because Saturn is security, okay? Saturn provides security, not always without sacrifice or discomfort. Sometimes it's like suffocatingly secure, but and heavy. But and the sun is sort of like, what's the opposite of inadequacy? Being competent, right? The sun is very competent. It's very positive. It's like, yes, I can do this. I can do this. So inadequacy and insecurity happens when the sun is in square to Saturn, because Saturn's going, oh, you can't do this. Saturn's like the really strict old parent, like the child shall not surpass the parent. And then the sun is like, I need a little bit of support and security, and Saturn's like, no. So the sun feels like, they can't accomplish much. So sun square Saturn. I have it in a trine. I think Leonardo DiCaprio has it in the trine too, and I read that it's like sun trine Saturn. I know I mentioned this before in the series, is like the ugly duckling thing, where, we, like, even though like Leonardo DiCaprio was famous very young, he didn't maybe like feel it, or it even could have to do with, like, they say the reason, and I guess he just broke the rule. It was like a headline I saw, but the reason he doesn't date women over like the age of 24 is because he doesn't want to get married and have kids. That's Saturn. So even in a trine, sometimes Saturn trine sun can be someone who doesn't really want to deal with responsibilities. They just want to have fun in the sun. Okay. Anyways, it's like their identity is strong enough then, so they don't need so much to submit to Saturn, because Saturn kind of they're already very secure in themselves, but in a square they don't have that security. They're like trying to get it, so they work harder for it. This is sort of my conclusion at this time. Anyways, I'm okay. I would say the same thing about the aspect appearing in a national psyche. It is a defensive aspect. And then so we're talking about Sun square Saturn. And when Jupiter is thrown in, it can be boastful and self-aggrandizing in order to mask the feelings of doubt, right? Because Jupiter expands everything. So if Jupiter's in the mix, now he's going to make it even more like the insecurities, sort of like narcissism, even more grandiose, self-aggrandizing, right? Self is the sun. Well, and a little bit of Mars, but anyway, obviously this kind of configuration has its creative side because it forces growth, right? Jupiter forces growth and fosters a determination to succeed. It's just that there's a kind of obsessiveness about the growth. That could be Saturn, being sort of fixed on something, wanting to succeed at it. So this is the basic psychic pattern which the transiting Jupiter-Saturn conjunction will trigger. There are implications of an overestimation of something in relation to another country, and a blow to the image or the national pride, and a reevaluation of standards and goals as a result. So you guys tell me what was going on in the early 80s that was a blow to America's self-esteem for you history buffs out there. And I'm going to show you the birth chart of Israel now if you want to screenshot it. It says May 14th, 1948, 4 p.m. Tel Aviv. Source Carter, Introduction to Political Astrology. So this is the chart we're looking at for Israel. Hi, Gavin. Thanks for coming back. All right. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction falls on the ascendant of Israel's chart. It is also conjuncts the natal Neptune, which is 10 degrees of Libra in both Carter's and the AFA charts. Saturn, I should mention, will be hanging about in the first half of Libra long after Jupiter has moved on. So the effects of this transit will probably last for quite a while, through the first half of 1982 at least. Jupiter and Saturn moving over the ascendant suggests to me that it is the personal identity of the nation which is being affected. The ascendant is the thing toward which we aspire, the myth which we try to live, right? Our rising sign, our ascendant. If you want to know your ascendant, you can go to divinetimingdatabase.com and start your own free private database, and you can, put your birth chart in first with your birth time. And then you can add whoever you want and look up their ascendants and save it and look it up online anywhere in the world. That's what I like about it, because all my astrology software is like on different computers, but with divinetimingdatabase.com, the free private database, I can look up, my charts anywhere that has cell or internet service. Anyways, the ascendant is the thing toward which we aspire, the myth which we try to live. We may not be equipped to live it very well because the rest of the chart may contradict it, but we will try nevertheless. And I've also heard that, the ascendant or rising is where the chart speaks. So it's like all the other things going on under the surface. It's what shows, right? It's sort of like the meme that says, thank God I don't look like the life I've lived, which I used to say, but now I don't know, it's catching up to me a little. Your ascendant is going to show the life you lived or that you're living. Okay. The Sagittarian ascendant in America's chart seems to me to be much more descriptive than the usual Gemini ascendant given, because the dream of the American is the life of the free individual with space to roam in and his own autonomy over his own lifestyle. Sagittarius is a cowboy at heart, whereas Gemini is a cultured intellectual. Not the thing I would associate with the image of the typical American as he presents himself to the world. I don't know. Present time, I feel like being an intellectual is more modern America. But yes, probably in the 80s, being a cowboy was, we still like the cowboy archetype as well, like Yellowstone and stuff. That was really cool. Taylor Sheridan, seeing like how our ancestors got to the West Coast is pretty brutal. Anyways, so Israel sees itself as either a Libran or a Scorpio, depending upon which chart you prefer. I can't really assess this because I have never lived there and have no direct experience of the nation. Libra is an idealistic sign, and despite the various encounters Israel has had with its neighbors in the years since it was founded, I think there has always been an attempt to present itself as a place where a formerly persecuted people can live in a peace and without threat. The ideal of Israel is a great dream, and I think there is a case to be made for that Libran ascendant with its hope of an orderly, beautiful, harmonious life. The transit of Saturn over this point, which means over Neptune as well, suggests a disillusionment, a recognition of the fact that the world might not be like that. Saturn transiting over Neptune in an individual's chart has a very disillusioning effect, because some great dream or fantasy that has always been cherished tends to take a battering from a material reality. If the fantasy has any truth in it, it is left more realistic, and if it's just wild, then it collapses altogether. Jupiter makes things want to grow, but Saturn curtails the growth through harsh reality. The effect of this conjunction on a country is going to be much the same as the effect of it on an individual. If you have an ascendant somewhere within the orb of the 7 or 8 degree point of the conjunction, then Jupiter will bring out the need to open up your life, to develop yourself either through relationships or through separating from relationships. But Saturn promotes the realization that you are limited by circumstances and by your own fears and blockages. So this is what was going on for me in 2008, because I have a Libra rising, I believe, because Saturn returns every 27 years. I'm not sure if Jupiter was there. I know there was a big Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn. All those planets lined up around 2020. But anyway, okay. We've talked about that before. So Saturn forces a confrontation with responsibility, with what hasn't been done or sorted out. Kind of like Mercury retrograde can make you come back and kind of finish some small tasks and clean up. Like it might make you clean your room or clean your closet, but Saturn makes you do it in a bigger way. Like, if you didn't get married and have kids, and Saturn might, a Saturn return or something, right? Because I always tell people that didn't get married before they're 27 that their Saturn return can bring in a very serious relationship for them, maybe even more serious than they think they want. Anyways, there's sort of a note here that I guess I could read it really quick. My battery's starting to get low now because I rambled on too much. But Barry Lynd's in his books, The Next 20 Years in Astroeconomics, presents extensive research supporting a USA chart with Sagittarius rising. Lynd's impressive work draws the conclusion that an ascendant of 7 degrees Sagittarius correlates most precisely with both transits and historical events. Write the publisher of this book for more information. Okay, so some astrologists, and I forget what it's called, they're really good at so if you don't know your ascendant, and I don't do this because I'm too analytical and too all over the place, and I could put it too many ways, but like ambiguous sometimes. But if you don't know your birth chart, I forget what it's called. I think it's called remapping. You can go, and I've had clients come to me and go, I've had my birth chart remapped, and this is what I think my sign is. And they'll do it for a lot of celebrities that have old, iconic ones that they don't know their birth time, but they'll kind of guess, what their birth charts are. So there's channels on YouTube that talk about that a lot too. So anyways, if you've never heard of that and you don't know your birth time, there are astrologists out there who do that. And if I knew of any good ones, I would put it out there right now. But if I hear of any, I'll let you guys know too. Anyways, so Saturn forces a confrontation with responsibility, with what hasn't been done or sorted out. The vision of a free future arises just at the moment when you are feeling most inadequate, and least able to manifest it. The reaction, of course, varies. You can try to put the two things together and use the vision as a goal towards which to work, taking care of what needs to be looked at internally or externally. That would be a more creative way of reacting. Or you can overcompensate and get terribly restless because of the feeling of restriction and start blaming everything and everyone in sight for the fact that you can't have this beautiful thing you suddenly realize you want. Of course, an individual has options which a country doesn't, because an individual can bring his consciousness to bear on a problem. A nation must react. And they also, a nation has more players at hand that have to be in agreement, right? Um, so that's sort of a process as well. Because the mass is a very subconscious organism, a very unconscious organism, and the less individual the people are in a nation, the more wildly it will react to a planetary pressure. So she's saying, I think what she's saying, and I learned this in like intercultural communication back in my liberal arts degree, but there's, most countries are culturally motivated, but newer countries are much more individualistic. So she's saying that countries that are more culturally conscious and have less individual sort of each man for himself energy are more influenced. This is what Liz is saying, Liz Green, by planetary transits, right? Because you don't have a bunch of individuals debating it and slowing it down. You just have, okay, boom, the planet is impacting these people and they feel it, I guess, would be my interpretation. Anyways, a nation must react. Yes, okay. If I saw the squares between Saturn and Jupiter conjunct Sun in America's horoscope in a person's chart, linking the 7th and 10th houses as they do, I would probably suggest that the person try some analysis to get at the root of the insecurities that make him behave so compulsively. But a country, unfortunately, can't go into analysis. The blinder and more indoctrinated the peoples are in a country, the more hysterical their responses are likely to be when a sensitive point gets triggered. But a people don't. But a people don't become more conscious except by each individual coming to terms with his own issues. That is very difficult and is the thing most of us would rather avoid dealing with. It's far easier to go along with whatever is happening and then get very angry when a country like Iran misbehaves, or on the other hand, if you're Iranian, to get very angry if America misbehaves. The chart for Iran, which I have put on the board, is set for the collapse of the Shah's government and the establishment of the Islamic Republic under Khomeini. I have no idea whether it's a correct chart or not. That's the problem with many of these mundane horoscopes, because sources conflict. This chart gives an ascendant of 7 degrees of Cancer, with Venus in 7 Capricorn on the descendant. So that would be ascendant square, or no, ascendant opposite Venus on the ascendant. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction would therefore square both the ascendant and the natal Venus, right? Because it's a Cancer and Capricorn, so transit in Libra would square Capricorn and Cancer. So the things I said about the Jupiter-Saturn over Israel's ascendant would apply here, about the urge for sudden expansion and perhaps rather inflationary ideas about the country's own importance, coupled with a sharp backlash either from hostile neighbors or from internal stress. If I were going to visualize a myth about the Cancer ascendant, I would use words like tradition and return to the roots, and also I would think of a clannish, introverted, self-contained entity which tried to create a culture based on a fantasy of the glorious past. I would expect hypersensitivity to a criticism and a strong national feeling of a family rather than a political entity. I think all these things are true about the new Iran. The square to Venus at the descendant from the transiting Jupiter-Saturn certainly suggests trouble with previously friendly countries, and a disillusionment which is typical of Saturn-Venus about just who are one's friends and enemies. While I enjoy speculating about the effects of the transit in the charts of countries, I am not totally happy about the accuracy of the ascendants in these charts, which makes me rather reluctant to talk in other general terms. So this kind of goes to, like I've had clients come to me and go, oh, if you don't have the birth time, you can't tell anything, right? Because most astrologists are reading based on the house system. When it comes to synastry and compatibility in the astrology, I do believe that just knowing the planetary placements is you can tell a lot. So, you can go to divinetimingdatabase.com/stars and you can run, the birth dates of places or people and see, what their compatibility is, even if you don't have the times. Or you can come to me for a reading. But, basically Liz is saying that she's mostly a house system ascendant astrologist. She understands the aspects of the planets, which is what I primarily read on. But she doesn't think that, that these countries birth charts are totally accurate without the actual knowledge of the birth time, which we're just guessing because it's like, when was a country actually, founded? So anyways, I would on a concrete level expect some sort of embarrassment or humiliation for the American government because of the 10th house Saturn, and I would expect Iran to get involved in a scrap of some kind with a neighbor, perhaps Israel. Although there are other Muslim countries who do not like Khomeini. That is as far as I would wish to go. I suppose also that I am not unduly alarmed by Jupiter Saturn because neither is an outer planet. See, and I disagree. I think they're outer planets, but she's calling them mid planets, I guess. Because neither is an outer planet, and the forces which are unleashed in the collective are not so terrifying or overwhelming as those which the outer planets represent. If Jupiter Saturn affects your own chart, then you must find your own solution to the problem of a sudden burgeoning of hope and enthusiasm and sense of new possibilities, coupled with a restriction or problem that prevents that hope from materializing. So I think when this, because I was telling you guys I have a Libra rising. I think this Saturn return, since she's in the early 1980s, would have been happening around like 2008, or this Saturn thing with a Libra rising chart, like she's saying for America. America has Libra on the midheaven, and she's saying Israel has Libra on the ascendant, possibly. So, this was around the time that I had my first marriage. So it's interesting because she says, coupled with a restriction or problem. And, that was sort of, you know, that just reminds me of sort of when I got married. It was like, it opened a lot of new possibilities, but it also created, quite a lot of restriction in my life, right? Oh, hey, Caleb. Yeah, thanks for coming back. I'm sorry. It's been a minute since I've been on, but I'll be on a lot over the next month. It's Mercury retrograde, so we're finishing out our book here. And I think, I might read sort of like a psychology book about NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, because I want to read it anyways. So I might as well read it with you guys. So that might be the next book. And then I also want to read, but it's really in depth, is what's it called? A Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. I read like half of it, and then I had to return it to the library, but now I have a copy and I haven't picked it up because I'm gonna have to start over. So, we talk a lot about archetypes and Greek mythology here to do with astrology, so I might do that one too, but I'm not quite sure yet. Thank you for subscribing though, Caleb. I remember talking to you before. Sorry for my, my absence, but I'm glad you're still here. So, I sort of just lost my spot, you guys. It's going to get into audience questions here in a second, and then I want to try to finish out lecture 4 today, but my battery is getting low. Let me see. I don't even know if I have a charger. I'm in my new office, so I don't know if I have one in the car, but I was at like 40% when I started, so I'm surprised how quickly it's drained. So if we don't finish it today, I'll be back like, if not sometime this week, in like early Monday, Tuesday next week, and we will like totally finish lecture 4 and get into 5. But I'm gonna go until my battery dies now. So I feel like when I read for a while, then it kind of starts to get smooth, but then I stop, and then it gets a little choppy here, just the ideas. But let's see. Did I flip the page? Is that what happened? Is that why I lost my, no? Okay, we're right here. So humiliation for okay, that is so she believes there's a lot of Muslim countries that didn't like Khomeini, I hope I'm saying that right, who was the ruler of Iran he was a leader of Iran in the early 80s. That is as far as I would wish to go. I suppose also that I am not unduly alarmed by Jupiter Saturn because neither is an outer planet. Okay, we already read that. If the Jupiter Saturn affects your own chart, oh yeah, okay. Then I went on to say that when I think this was happening in my chart, I felt that new possibilities versus restriction thing going on. But it wasn't squaring my sun like it would be. Okay. All right. Anyways, audience, can you say something about the chart for Great Britain? Liz, yes, but I am worried about spending a great deal of time on these national charts at this point. So hopefully lecture 5 won't be so much of this. I mean, some of you might enjoy the politics and all that, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not really a political astrologist, but I'm always open to learning a little bit just in case it ties into something else, right? We've learned different ideas about, squares and things. And like I said, I do a lot of compatibility astrology. If you ever want a reading from me, you can go to rotation411.com. But so, I like to understand how the planets are talking. That's how I do what I base most of my readings off of. But anyways, there is the same problem here as to which chart is correct. There is a chart for England based on the crowning of William the Conqueror, which gives the sun in Capricorn at the midheaven and an Aries ascendant. Kings were traditionally crowned at noon when the sun was at the zenith, so the time is probably accurate. There's also a chart for the United States, for the United Kingdom, which is the incorporation of Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. And interestingly, this too gives the sun in Capricorn with a Libran ascendant, which would be the opposite of an Aries ascendant. So it's still very similar. It's just when it was William, then it was a natural chart. And when they added the other countries in for Great Britain, then became a reverse natural chart. The ascendant is 7 degrees of Libra, so it's actually mirroring itself, which is interesting. Another 7 degrees, right, for these countries. So the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction would land on it in the same way that it lands on the ascendant of Israel. Right? So she's saying Israel could, or yeah, we already went over that. There is a third chart for Great Britain, which represents the union of England and Scotland in 1707, and that has the sun in Taurus, which, is trine Capricorn, so still a very similar earthy energy, a little more fixed than go-getter, but because right, Capricorn is cardinal, right? So Capricorn's like, we got to keep going, we got to climb to the top, and Taurus is like, I'm here, I've arrived, I did it. Like, I count, I'm worthy. And has a sun in Taurus with a 16-degree Capricorn ascendant. Okay, so there comes the Capricorn again. So one thing we know for certain is that there's a lot of Capricornian energy in Britain and England, no matter which chart you're looking at. And, especially for like America and maybe even, I believe, Australia, it would make sense that Great Britain or England would have, the UK would have a lot of Saturn in its chart, right? Because that's sort of the father of America, right? We had to break away from like the Jupiter and Pluto, right? They broke away from Saturn, Cronus. So we broke away. So it makes sense that Saturn would be prominent, Capricorn energy in the old rulership, right? Now I realize the difficulty in offering generalizations about a country because people always stand up and say that it's different in their village and so on. But as I was not born in England, I have a slightly more unjaundiced view of it from the outside. And the Capricornian qualities, okay, I haven't read this, you guys, are very apparent to me. Well, should have just kept reading before I said all that. Yes, Caleb. So we're talking about the archetype of Capricorn. So Capricorn is ruled by Saturn and is the father. The sun is a little bit the father too, but so Capricorn is very, it's a cardinal sign, so very ambitious, wants to be successful, wants to follow the rules, cares about reputation, or is just sort of admired naturally and respected. So, it's not bad things. It's just, it's a very earthy energy. So that's what I'm saying. So, I'd have to look at your whole birth chart, but Capricorns are often very like seasoned, almost old souls, getting closer to the end of the zodiac, like Pisces. So great sense of humor, but you don't, it's like, I say this about Aries too. It's like, you don't want to be on a Capricorn's bad side, right? They're the, strict parent. So it's like you do things the right way and things go well for you would sort of be most Capricorn's mottos, So it depends whether you have authority over someone or not, whether they're going to feel your Saturn Capricorn energy. If they're just your buddy, they may or may not feel that at times, you putting them in line, right? Yeah, but, you'll kind of grow into it too. But if, you're, if it's like your child, then they're going to feel like, very secure because, Saturn, we talked about this a few minutes ago. I don't know if you're in here. When we're talking about Saturn square the sun, Saturn provides security. So, people can rely on you and feel secure, but also, they need to do what you think is right for you not to sort of, either reprimand them or maybe even cut them off. All right, well, let's see here. I would need like your birth time and everything if you wanted to do a reading. You can go to rotation411.com and do like one of the tarot videos. It's like a 15 I think it's like 15 or 20 bucks. It's like a 5-minute reading, but I could look in your chart and kind of go over it with you really quick if you want to do that. If you do like the tarot reading, I can do like a video for you really quick on your birth chart. But I just don't have time for that right now because I got to get out of here. So I'm just going to wrap up what we're saying about Capricorn in the UK. I think that's about all the battery I have left. And then we only have like 2 more audience questions we'll start with for the end of lecture 4, and then we'll get right into lecture 5. So if I can't have any time this weekend, I'll get on. I might work on other videos for the channel, but I'll definitely be on a lot over the next month. That fire Leo season makes me want to be out there a little more. Sometimes my introverted, Virgo moon doesn't want to talk to the world. But anyways, so I was gonna say, like, my birth chart says gregarious loner, or I wrote this little thing today and now I can't think of it and I'm running out of time. So maybe on the next video I'll start with it. I'll tell you guys like what it's like. It's like low key, high energy. Someone once said about me, low key, like I don't want the spotlight, but I have a lot of energy sometimes to be out there. Anyways. I was gonna say I'm timid but overzealous. Sometimes I'm timid, but I can also be very overzealous. So, anyways, which was like, yeah, let's read this whole book. Okay. As I was not born in England, although the English forever protest that they are no longer a class structured society, they of course are precisely that. And any American who has been born in a genuinely class-free country is struck by the class distinctions, no matter how hard people protest against them. It's deeply embedded in the British psyche. Capricorn is a I know this word and I can't fucking spit it. Oh, excuse my language. Didn't say that. I can't spit it out right now. Capricorn is a hierarchical, I can't pronounce it. I know it. Hierarchical sign. Hierarchical. I know it, but it's irritating me that I can't do it and the battery's getting lower and lower. It's a hierarchical sign and firmly believes that everything has its appropriate place. When you can say the word and you can hear yourself saying it, but then it's like not coming out right. I always say it, hierarchy, hierarchical. There we go. You didn't hear that. Okay. I said fudge. All right. It's a hierarchical sign. There we go. I got it. And firmly believes that everything has its appropriate place. I studied sociology, so there is stratification, which would be classism in America. It's just like, it's almost like hidden. It's like covert narcissism. It's like there's covert classicism in America, where in Britain they're much more, upfront about it and maybe a little more grandiose. But, I haven't been there either, but I'm just saying as far as what she's talking about here. Hey, Gavin. Thank you. Thanks for coming back. Hey, we're trying to finish this paragraph before the battery dies. It's a hierarchical, now I said it right, now I'm trying to say it again. Okay, it's a hierarchical sign. It's firmly believes that everything has its appropriate place. It's a deeply conservative sign, and I mean the word in a broad sense, not in its specifically political one. A taxi driver was quoted recently in the Times as describing what he felt to be the basic British attitudes toward life. He said, quote, "If it moves, club it to death," end quote. But euphemistically, that means a certain caution about new and progressive elements. Ideas and products which are quickly taken up in America and Germany and Holland eventually seep into England 20 years later. That is terribly Capricornian. So it is the incredible solidity and determination and doggedness which only becomes apparent. She's basically saying Capricorns are resilient, Caleb, just in case you would, in a nutshell, which only becomes apparent when a war or some other disaster shakes people out of their muddling through approach. Then the Capricorn spine of stainless steel shows itself. Resilience, stainless steel. I want to finish reading these questions, but my phone is dying, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, if you're single and you're looking for a partner that you good astrological compatibility with, and the potential to actually maybe work out for a lifetime, or at least longer than a few years, check out moonmatch.love. If you do the uh, silver membership, it's free. You can enter the matchmaker. They're doing that at least for the summer. I know that they just redid everything, so it's a lot easier now to enter the matchmaker. You just pick a membership, and then you go to the menu and you pick matchmaker, and then you just enter your birth details, and you can see if you have any matches. It'll populate within like a few minutes. So definitely do that. I know that a lot of you do have matches in there. Even some of you that have entered before haven't like gone back and looked at your matches. So I'm not sure, because those of you that paid before for the entry, you're grandfathered into the chat membership, which is now called the golden membership. But you can still go see, if you do the silver membership, it's free at least through the end of the summer, they're saying right now, because they just updated everything, so they want to get more people in there and get more matches. So if you are single or know someone who believes in astrology, and you're tired of like, going on the dating apps and meeting people and then it not working out and kind of wasting your money on dates, men that with women you don't like, or vice versa, women, wasting your time or getting attached to people that don't work out, go to moonmatch.love. It's the database, divinetimingdatabase.org. There's a lot of different things on divinetimingdatabase.com. There's where you can do your free private database. That's just .com. If you do /stars, that's the compatibility report, where you can run and see your compatibility with people you already know. You just put your birth dates. It doesn't save it, so you can just like generate a quick report. If you want to save it, you'll have to like screenshot it or whatever. The free private database, it saves it for you. Like I said, you can look it up anywhere that has internet service. You can save all, like you could meet people and save their charts in there. One of my friends was doing that. I have an account for like clients and myself, like my personal family and friends, um and so I have another one, I think, like more like a test one, I think. But so I have all of those, and I have other astrology software even, and I still find myself using it. So it's a great resource. And check out again moonmatch.love, and stay tuned, subscribe, because I am going to be coming out with astronomy versus astrology, why they don't align, modern day video in the next probably month, give or take. I've been sort of researching it, but I got to actually kind of outline it so that I'm not all over the place. And I will be coming out with the Sagittarius Sun Aries Moon video for the big 144 series very soon. I've been scripting that in my head over and over as well. So all right, bye Gavin, thank you for joining us. Thank you Caleb for coming back. For all of you that were here, I saw you guys popping in and out. Callan, Jalen, yes, all right, thanks you guys. Well, I'll be back on. If I don't get on over the weekend, I'll be back on, like, my schedule is a little crazy, but Monday or Tuesday, either morning or afternoon Pacific Standard Time, the United States, I will be on. We have 2 audience questions left in lecture 4, so we'll finally wrap up lecture 4, get into lecture 5. There's 7 lectures, so we'll be starting 5, 6, 7. So we got 3 more to go. Let's see, what are they about? Just kind of, I know like the planet ones, I had said we're going to go over the birth charts of the planets in the index. It makes it look, I'm just going to go over the index really quick. In the index here, it says like illustration, so it makes it look like we were going to go over like each planet on its own, but they're actually included in the lectures. So it's just 7 lectures total. So I know when I started, I kind of made it seem like we were going to go through the lectures and then go through all the charts. The charts are a part of the lectures. So lecture 5 is going to be covering, I don't know if this is lecture 5 because it's Soviet Socialist Republics, but I know like the last couple of lectures go over the beginning of the Pisces age and the Aquarian age, and there was a really cool Gaia thing. I told you guys I was going to attach. I think I might just attach it to like all the links in the videos because I referred to it so much, but there's like the secret language, not the secret language of birthdays, it's like the secret language of symbols or something. It was a Gaia channel thing, and it talks really in depth about the age of Aries, which was before the age of Pisces, and the age of Aries and the age of Pisces, which is really cool. So we're gonna get into the age of Aquarius eventually here, I think in like lecture 7. So that makes me want to get there even faster. I'm just kind of rambling before the phone dies. The beginning of the Pisces age. So I guess lecture 7 is when we'll start that part. What's lecture 6 about? Well, we're going into lecture 5 next. Doesn't really title it. So lecture 5 will be on Russia's horoscope in the Soviet Union. I think that one might be a little bit shorter than the rest. Maybe not, it's pretty thick. Lecture 6. So I think lecture 6 goes a little bit more over like actual individual birth charts in the outer planets, since we've been talking more, about politics and world stage. And she was, I'm pretty sure lecture 6 is a little bit more about like if you have outer planets in your birth chart, aspects and what they mean. We've talked about it quite a bit, but I think that's mostly what that one is. So we will be finishing lecture 4 and getting into lecture 5 early Monday or Tuesday. Love and light. Bye, you guys. Thanks for joining me. And again, really quick, Mercury retrograde, it's not a bad time to finish things. That's why we're finishing these lectures. It's a bad time to start something. All right. Love and light.